lost 13 relatives. Maybe Mary Hadfield could be the centre point Faith was looking for. Maybe a descendant. Maybe even bring 13 into the title. 13 dead. She felt the enthusiasm grow within her, and knew Jack had been right when he had suggested she take off for a month, rent a holiday cottage in Eyam, and concentrate solely on the current book. Immerse herself in the real Eyam, and not the Eyam anyone could research in books or online. Already strong ideas were forming, linking Eyam's bleak historical past with the present day, and she leaned against a wall while she added something else to her notes. A splodge of rain landed on the paper, and she slipped the small notebook into her pocket. She took out instructions and headed towards the stocks. Her brain went into overdrive. Maybe a body discovered in the stocks. She read the words on the information board and saw they had been built for the miners in the lead mining industry who had committed relatively minor offences. She gave a brief smile as she thought of miners committing minor offences, took some pictures, and continued on her journey. Her iPhone worked overtime with the number of pictures taken, and eventually she reached a tea room, where she gratefully found an empty table. She ordered a ham salad sandwich and a pot of tea, and took out her phone to check the pictures. She wrote fresh ideas into her book, feeling exhilarated by how alive this village was making her. She followed up the sandwich with a strawberry tart, telling herself she would walk off the extra calories as she completed the circuit planned out for her. She paid her bill and thanked the assistant behind the counter. "You'll see more of me," Faith said. "I'm staying in the village for a month, at Leaf Cottage, and I hope to be doing plenty of walking." "You'll be very welcome here," the woman said with a smile. "Are you writing a guidebook of some sort?" "No, I am a writer, but of fiction. I was actually plotting a murder during my lunch." "Awesome! I'm Amanda Gilchrist, by the way, if you need anything." Faith Young, that's very kind." "The Faith Young? Loads of books? D.I. Hardcastle series?" Faith laughed. "You've read one or two, then?" "I think all of them. Mostly on Kindle, but I have 3 or 4 paperbacks. I'm going to bring them in to work, if you wouldn't mind signing them next time you're in." "Of course. I always feel quite honoured." "I'll bring them in tomorrow, so call in whenever you can. And I apologise for all the banging and drilling. We're having an extension built, so eventually it will be a bistro in the evenings. We have to put up with the noise for the moment." Faith laughed. "No problem. I live with a DIY husband. My life is a noisy one." Faith left the tea room and headed towards where the wooded area began. The rain was heavier, and she pulled up the hood of her jacket, more to keep out the cold than the wet. She increased her walking pace in an effort to warm up, and she immediately climbed as she reached the woods. It was dark under the canopy created by the closeness of the trees, and she wondered how many of them had been there since the plague times. She could see a house in the distance, with white painted walls and green shutters. One of them, open at one she presumed was a bedroom window, smoke rising from a chimney, and an end wall covered in what she guessed was an ivy of the darkest green. She took a quick photograph of the building and dropped her phone back into her pocket. The rain was getting heavier, and she lowered her head to try to shelter her face from the coldness of the water. Trudging onwards and upwards, the incline grew steeper, but she realised it meant she must be approaching the top end of the village. She stopped and leaned for a moment against a tree, partly to catch her breath, and partly so she could study where she was on the hand-drawn map. She reckoned she had about 1/4 of a mile of woodland left to clear, and she would reach the road she was seeking. She refolded the map and continued to remain by the tree, which seemed to be offering her a modicum of shelter from the rain, and also her somewhat erratic thoughts. She tugged her hood tighter around her neck and thought about how to describe this situation in the book. Her thoughts about her life would have to wait. It was creepy. Almost felt as though it should be 4 o'clock rather than 1. The skies were becoming greyer by the second, and she pulled out her book to jot down the words.